No, you're good.
No, you got that part of it's all fine, and
It's
I
all
think
good.
the audio is fine. I think it's just shit now.
It's just the stream. He just had to restart the stream.
It happens to everybody.
Yeah.
It's normal.
Gotcha.
Let me check the audio before we get back.
He's gonna check the audio real quick. How many guys we got looking?
Sounds great.
We're good.
Everything's super.
All right, go ahead and pick up where you're at, Marcus.
Police brutality. I have someone I went to school with, and we've had several conversations. But sometimes on the same nights that you and I have been talking, Zeb, that I was talking, two conversations at the same time.
Right.
And there is the thought in, I think, of white America that everything that we're protesting for is overblown, and even you've said that the media is blowing it out of proportion. And I can tell you for a fact that regardless of what the media produces or puts out, if anything, they're not putting it out enough. Because the reason these protests are going on nationwide is that police and these inequalities exist nationwide. And is it always a black man? No. Sometimes it's a Hispanic man. Sometimes, but the vast majority of these abuses are happening to people of color. And therefore, what they're calling Black Lives Matter is really coming down to almost a point, we're the focal point, because it's most often of could just as well call it is white people listen. Because at this point, people are getting to a point where they don't know where to turn. Scared for your kids to go out. You got to take, there's a point in the back of your thought. If you get up from one house at 11:30 and you have to drive 45 minutes of don't want to get stopped, not because you're going to have a ticket, but just because you don't want that hassle and, God forbid, that threat of not getting home. And that is a terrible stress to put a people under. And it makes you lose hope. And when people lose hope, they get to a point where they want to fight. Okay? And that's kind of where we're at now. For all these years, they've said it takes time. It takes time. Change doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. We're talking about the same thing we've been talking about for the last 400 years. And at some point you say, when is time enough? You got people that the police are just one part of it. Let's make it clear that I don't think that everything you see out there is just against the police. It's just they're the focal point right now, and that focal point is easy to see if for no other reason they seem to be committing the same transgression night after night after night. He's like, okay, they kill one kid and they kill one man and give it 2 or 3 days, and Lord behold, they kill somebody else. During the day of video, like, you gotta know you're on camera somewhere. Wouldn't you at least slow down and think about what you're doing? And there's this thought that police had the ability to do this for so long, is that they don't think. They're not thinking, but they know they're on camera, and therefore, knowing they're on camera, they have to feel like there is no recourse or penalty for me killing this man. And mostly it's because they don't see them as men, or at least not as equals.
How?
Yeah.
Everybody said those had to be animals, monsters, to put their knee on a man's neck to him losing his life after 8.5 minutes. Hell, they've shown videos of this happening time and time and time again now. So this isn't a one-off situation. Police brutality for people of color is real. It's something we grow up with. It's something we raise our children with. It's something that we have to tell our children. If you get stopped, this is the way you get right. Whether you're right or whether you're wrong, don't worry about it. Just get home.
I think too, you know, like you said, there's cameras literally everywhere. They're on stores, street corners, they're in everyone's pockets. And, you know, with the George Floyd situation specifically, I noticed people they're like, how could you stand there? You know, how could you film this? Well, what happens if it wasn't on camera? We wouldn't have even heard about it. We've seen that, you know, that happens over and over and over and has gotten no better. It's just now there are people with cameras everywhere, you know. So, especially with that case, you look at Derek Chauvin, I think was his name. I don't know if I pronounced that right or not. Just the look in his eyes when he's staring dead into a camera, you know, killing a dude in broad daylight. He had zero remorse. And, you know, you can't keep your knee on someone's neck for almost 9 minutes. I think it was 8 minutes and 46 seconds or something without knowing that you're killing them. I mean, it's impossible. Unless you're like, there's some mental issue with you where you can't discern. There was zero. I can't imagine a world where that was a acceptable police tactic, you know, and people are still defending it. The one guy,
You've heard some people defend.
yes, of
child
course.
law? Wow.
Well, and now you've got like the one officer that was with him. It was supposed to be like his 4th day or some shit. I don't know, but they said, well, he was just following the superior. If you're a fucking cop, you should know better than to take part in something like that. You know, I understand that they probably, there's like a certain fear of backlash from your department or whatever, but there's where your morals come in, and can you continue to do a job that's going to ask you to do things like that?
Yeah, I don't think it's that moral compass is solely derivative into racism. You know, I think you don't have to look far from our neck of the woods for police brutality. Here in Campbell County, we're fighting. The local sheriffs is fighting a case. The county is fighting a case, a $25 million suit where a man from Michigan, let me pull up his name, was beaten.
I think it was Andrew Ling.
Yes, Andrew Ling. That's it, Ling. And was beaten and left on the concrete floor, left for 7 hours without medical treatment. Now, that's a case where he didn't die. There are cases of individuals, people of color and non-color, being killed by police. I think there is an issue with training, but I also think there's a lot of issue with stress and vetting and money in itself. So when people talk about defunding the police and things like that in regards to police brutality, I think defunding the police is kind of a good example of the media trying to split us, because there are some places where they want to completely defend the police and start from scratch, but there are other places where they're not wanting to defund it, they're wanting to re-administrate it, different training, different ideas, different approaches. certainly America is in politics and government is rooted in racism, Jim Crow, segregation laws, the black codes, Reconstruction, Civil War, you don't have to go far for the litany of the mistakes and sins of America. But what I find interesting is that the media narrative is so hard, and I love it because I get to sit here and say it, is that it's so hard to tell us that you're not going anywhere. This nation's nowhere. You are more divided than you were before. You have no rights. Yeah, sure, y'all could drink in the same fountains, but we're not the same. The media is telling us that we're not a nation that has something to be proud of. And it's inciting violence in these very few situations, because that violence does not speak for all the peaceful protests. You know, I'm not going to hop on the Fox bandwagon and sit here and say all these peaceful protests are wrong because there's a few rioting and looting. Peaceful protest is great and one of the staples of our republic. But I just can't help to notice this narrative that, you know, we haven't come that far. We're not, and we really have. If you look at our nation, what we've done, where we've done. I didn't particularly vote for Barack Obama. The first time he ran, I didn't vote because I didn't vote at all. I was in country. The second time, I voted against him on different, but namely the Second Amendment and other voting points. But it's pretty amazing that, you know, we have this narrative that that we're as bad as we were up before. We've not come that far. When I just don't think that's true. Does that mean that we don't need to address re-administrating some funds, retraining, doing some other vetting for what's going on in these mishaps in the police unions, cops not turning in cases of police brutality? Been a huge problem. You hear other cops say that themselves. All that stuff needs to be addressed, but I think the racist narrative is largely pushed because I don't think it's a coincidence that November's coming up as well, in my opinion.
So let me give a little historical reference to police and the black community as a whole. You realize that there was a time where there really wasn't very much of a police at all, or even sheriff or constables. As a matter of fact, you pretty much had people who were putting plots of land and places of growing and land ownership and that type of thing. But many sheriffs and constables were literally started for the sheer purpose of tracking down black people that had escaped and bringing them back into slavery. Now, if that was much of the foundation for what the police is, it's never had a positive connotation where we are concerned. When you add that to a day where you see these people being killed by police, it brings back a long-term hostility with people of color and police. When the 60s, when in Mississippi, when that black kid, that Jewish kid, and that white Saxon kid got killed in Mississippi and buried in that dam, it was under the ruse of them being police officers that they were stopped, killed, and buried in that earthen dam. So there is that struggle and that strife with police. Now, police are a power structure. And when they say defund the police, you have people's opinions, everything from get rid of them all to where we were slavery period or pre-freedom period for slaves. all the way till today, to where you have some that say, just change the way the police departments are so that we can separate the police into groups where we have social work out of the police department. And the other day is an example of a defunding technique that they would like to change. Had a drunk man who was passed out in a parking lot of windows. Now, the police came, an armed police officer came, and the result was a man was running away, shot in the back twice, rupturing his heart, dying in the parking lot with one man having a foot on his shoulder, and the man that shot him kicking him after saying, "I got it." Now, there's a whole realm of issues to deal with that. One, had there been an armed police officer there in the first place? Second, should you be shooting anyone that's running away? And lastly, for God's sakes, why did you believe you could shoot that man in the street, kick him, and there would be no recourse for it? Black people look at that as an abuse from the beginning to the end. And therefore, you hear from people of color and people everywhere that see the power structure in police as being too strong, too militaristic, to say something has to change, and defund is the catchword for now. Me personally, I will tell you, there's a place for the police, because I don't want to have to patrol my yard and shoot somebody trying to shoot somebody, or trying to shoot somebody trying to steal something out of my yard. So it has its place, but it definitely needs some type of change. Simple thing, and the simple change would be, is to make all police officers subject to the responsibility and accountability for what they do. And I say to say, if you kill somebody, you have the potential to go to jail for the rest of your life, just like I do.
Yeah,
the problem right now is they don't.
How?
Hold on. Go ahead. I'm running through some of the Discord.
So, Hal's looking through some things for the Discord.
I guess it's on the Twitch stream.
The Twitch stream. You got something you want me to take this?
Oh, no, go ahead.
I completely agree. I wish we could have had Dre's segment maybe a little bit before yours if we weren't running so behind and our schedules didn't conflict with his. He has a lot of good thoughts on MMA training and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and what can be done in the reorganization of police. But I think defunding the police and that whole narrative of, the race riots. First of all, you have, pundits and news organizations openly advocating for violence, openly advocating to destroy property, and if someone gets in your way, well, you're not gonna deal with that, because they're probably a white supremacist anyways. There's no way they're just protecting their property, I think that's dangerous, and I think when you have instances like what happened to the man in Dallas, which, he chased off some of the guys with a sword, but the dude was just trying to protect his store and got beat down for it, still in critical condition. He might be out of the hospital now, I don't know yet. The sad story of the officer, Mr. Dorn, killed in St. Louis, a lifetime of service to his family, and to be killed in the streets of St. Louis pleading with his youth.
Hold on, though.
Go ahead.
The Dallas dude, he came out on, I think it was on Twitter, and he was like, I shouldn't have done what I'd done. I kind of got what I deserved. According to him, it wasn't his store. It was just a bar that he likes to drink
was
at.
He just drunk or something?
No, I don't know that he was drunk. But it wasn't his store, and those people weren't, from his account, weren't actually coming towards him. He just
I don't know. The dude was beat down. Okay, so we'll discount
I mean, yeah,
that
he
one.
got his
we
ass
could, we
kicked,
could we could go to New Jersey or wherever where the white couple is beat with 2x4s in front. I mean, I don't want to go into that fear mongering.
Well, see,
But
that's
exactly what Fox and BNC is doing. And that's what I'm saying. And my issue with advocating for the looting, advocating for the violence, and all that is really a bad way to go, because then that puts people in a certain... I've had people reach out to me and say, man, I don't know what to do. If this happens here and they want to destroy my livelihood, I can't let this happen. Well, you're not allowed to defend or speak up or anything because you're a white supremacist right off the bat. You can't have it. So I guess my point with defund the police, the narrative of looting, the rights of that or whatnot, maybe the retribution part of it is valid or justified. There's a great deal of people that and of color, not just color. People of color aren't allowed to speak out against it because they become Uncle Tom or whatever they want to call it, which is one of the most derogatory things I've ever seen anybody call them to their face. I think it's interesting, man, that people are saying, hey, protest, do that, please don't burn my street down, and those people are white supremacists. Those guys are vouching for violence. I find that interesting talking point. That's just my opinion, though. What do you say to that, Marcus?
As far as the violence for violence sake, let's be clear in what we call news agencies, corporations, entities, whatever you might want to call them. All these things are still made up of people. And these people are in themselves all made up of their own prejudice and pluses and minuses and everything that makes them up. When you say that Fox comes from one point of view and MSNBC comes from one point of view, I will tell you that those points of view go from the middle all the way out to our extremities of where these people are that support those groups. I support everything that MSNBC has said? No. Do I support lots of things MSNBC has said? Oh, yes. Do I support many of the things that Fox has said? Not many, because truly they support a point of view that doesn't have anything to do with me, who I am, and those things that would make my life better.
Do you think...
You say the violence end of it, if we're going to get rid of violence and news and all that, let's start with the bottom and the top. Because the president sure said, on one voice said that the media was the problem, and in the next voice said, I'll pay for it if they arrest you. That type of rhetoric coming from the top down filters down where people actually believe that they have a voice to say and do what they wish. I will tell you now that although when Barack Obama was president, I felt then and I felt now that we weren't really any less racist then than we are now. For I truly feel we haven't gotten any better. Maybe even we've gotten a little worse. And we've gotten worse, not that the racism has gotten any worse, it's just now we've ripped off the sheets and we can see it. See, it was there then. But now that Trump is the president, he's made it comfortable for people who had these ideas all along to feel like they can say them out in public. Now you have somebody feel like they can say what they want to when, because now they feel like I don't have to be socially correct. Being socially correct just means living within the norms of whatever the nation is you live with.
Give me an example.
And you live outside of those norms, then you start talking about those extremes.
Marcus, give me an example of what I guess we're talking about white America, that that Trump has made it comfortable for them to be outright racists now.
And Trump came out, and first of all, the whole notion of make America great again is a fallacy to people, black people especially, because America has never, ever, ever held its promise for black people.
He stole
We've never
that
been
from Reagan.
equal.
That was a Reagan. That was a
Maybe
Reagan.
better
thing.
now, but we've never had the same rights as everyone else. So when you say make America great again, first thing black people are gonna say, when was it great?
There's
Because it's been a continuous struggle from the beginning.
there's some interesting comments coming through on the Twitch
Yeah, let's
stream.
get some comments real quick.
The media has fanned the flames of racism. Yeah,
Who's that from?
that is from Mimnock the Devil. I don't
Well,
know if I
Mimnock.
should say his real name.
Yeah, what was it? Mimnock.
But
Go ahead.
but yeah, it says the media has fanned the flames of racism, and I have to agree on that too, because and like you said earlier, I don't think it's much of a coincidence that it's November
It's
coming
November.
up, and but yeah, but that also goes along with how Donald Trump has made it sort of.
Donald Trump is a symptom of the media. The media
Sure.
created Donald Trump.
Sure.
They allowed him to become, and it wasn't just Fox. It was MSNBC too. They allowed him.
I 100% agree, because truly they could have pulled the plug on him and just not played it.
Well, they can pull the plug on anybody. They hold that kind of clout.
We'll see. Another
And I
comment
agree
that
with you.
come through is
You say that Donald Trump is a symptom of the media, and I say they're co-conspirators, because the Trump uses the media and the media uses Trump.
Well, what's the next? What's the next? That's a good observation.
it's about the we were talking about earlier, the fact that slavery still is a problem in the world.
Yeah.
You know Justin Wren.
And
right?
American foreign policy has a lot to be blamed for that, especially in Libya. The slave trade, which is so strong in Libya, is a direct response to us ousting Gaddafi under Hillary and Obama's foreign policy. Which, once again, I think Hillary was pulling the strings most on that, but. I'm not going to go in. I'm not going to bash Obama. I'm not going to do that. But that was an issue for me, was foreign policy. And Libya is a perfect example where it's a hotbed of extremism and slavery.
Well, you're familiar with Justin
How
Wren.
in the world can you connect Obama and slavery? That in itself makes no sense to me.
I connected American foreign policy directed under Hillary Clinton and Obama's administration, and them toppling Gaddafi while he was in power, that allowed for a whole new government that implemented a very strong slave trade there in extremist policies. Did I say Obama specifically did it? I said American foreign policy under his administration allowed that to happen. That's what I said. Obama himself didn't go to Libya and instrument put in institutionalized slavery there, but it was American foreign policy under his administration that did that. And guys like McCain, they drew up the blueprint of nation toppling in the Middle East, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend, which we both know is not true now. That sort of thinking came about, and this is the end result. The problem in the Middle East is kind of the end result of that quagmire, in my opinion. What other problems we got?
No, I was talking about slavery in other parts of the world today, and Justin Wren. I don't know if you've seen what he had done for the Mabutu Pygmy tribe. He had kind of adopted a little village for his own, and they were enslaved by a neighboring village. And all it really took to free them was to free up land and show the slave masters how to farm for themselves, you know, and
That's
basically build a
interesting.
society while simultaneously doing that for the Pygmy tribe
That's
too.
What's this guy's name?
Justin Wren.
Justin.
He's a UFC fighter.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a documentary on that, and I think he done like a TED talk or something along those lines. And but yeah, these people were being fed. They were being given a banana at the end of every workday to take home and share with their family. So they fed them just enough to where they had to come back. So I mean, when you look at it like that, yeah, we do still have extreme cases of slavery in the world today, but all
That's
it
the-
took literally was here's clean water and food.
That's a very good point. First of all, before we move on to this subject, is there anything on the prior subject, Marcus, you want to add on, or do you want to leap into this and kind of talk about global slavery and what's going on with that? And the reason why we're jumping to that is because it's
as
being
far
pushed
as-
by some of the viewers.
I got you. Worldwide slavery has been an issue from the beginning of time. Okay? And you can't fix world slavery until you get rid of the slavery here. As long as we are truly going to be that city on the hill, okay? And you would first lead by example, and then you push out your influence from there. You cannot affect China and Africa and all these other countries and say what you're doing to this people is wrong when you got the people here who are in our power structure doing the things here. So,
So to be clear, do you
now
feel that we have the same
have gotten
freedoms as
to
China
a
and North
place
Korea?
at which, how do you want it? Are we a geopolitical power? Are we going to be a national power, or should we be both? My opinion, we have to be both, because if we progress from being a geopolitical power for the world, then somebody takes that place for us, and if they take that place from us, that means they then lead, and by leading, they dictate what happens in the world. If I have a choice of whether I'm going to live by somebody else's rules or going to live by my own, I would sure rather than be my own. But in that, I would like for the rules that I live by to be my own. I would like for those.
You there, Marcus?
Before we can go make other people be legitimate else.
I think he's getting
We got you. You're back. You're back. Let me ask you a question real quick, because you bring up a good point that I think ties in with a lot of the things we're talking about. Do you feel that we are just as censored and suppressed as, provinces in China and North Korea here in America?
I lost you for a second.
You need me to repeat the question?
Please.
So you bring up a lot of good points with, world slavery and America being an example, so to speak. Do you feel like we are just as censored and policed as, say China and North Korea?
Absolutely not. One, because we can have this conversation.
That's fair. We got anything else on the
See,
comment thread?
comparing yourself to,
Nah, still pretty much the same thing.
Go ahead,
I mean,
Marcus.
Somebody told me a teacher once told me, compare yourself to crap doesn't mean you don't smell. It just means you don't smell as bad as the crap.
That's good. That's good.
You didn't use the word crap, but we got the intention.
No, well, I'm sure. Yeah, I appreciate your restraint. I'm restraining as myself. I know Hal's busting at the seams. Look how red his face is. He wants to drop an F-bomb so bad. Look at him.
I curse a lot.
So we've covered a lot of things. We've got police brutality, loose discussion on racism.
What about Chaz for a moment?
Talking about Chaz. Are you familiar with Chaz, Marcus?
Basically, what I've seen from movies and a little bit that
Or Chop. The name has changed, I do believe. The autonomous zone in Seattle.
I will tell you. And when they went in and they kidnapped all those girls from that school, okay, and America went in and basically went after them and got those girls back. That was an example of what our world power should be. Should we try to end the atrocities across the globe? One, where we can, but two, end atrocities elsewhere when you have atrocities here. And I say again, Muhammad Ali said, why should I go fight Vietnam when no yellow man has ever called me a nigger? And the simple fact is that point of what we're talking about now is you can't profess and put out your greatness when you had that weakness from within, because it makes you hollow.
Yeah, I can
right
understand
now, what everybody is coming to see is that at best we're a paper tiger, because you can't go to Russia and North Korea and these different places and say you can't treat these people like this. You can't get mad. You can get upset. You can be hurt. You can be concerned about those protesters in Hong
Seattle?
Kong.
Oh, Hong Kong.
You know what's happening to them. You can see what China's doing. China's going to very quickly say to us, don't tell us what to do. You're doing the same thing there.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
The
So
worst thing that could have ever been shown on TV, and again, I'm sitting there think of what you're doing, if nothing else. Don't walk across the street and the first thing you do is shoot canisters or tear gas at people. That would have been one thing if they were shooting them the night before when the church was on fire. That would have at least seemed legitimate. When there's nothing going on at all the night after,
So there was an attempt to burn the church, though, right?
A bunch of kids, and on top of that, say it didn't happen.
So
You
I
can
see where
see
you're
it
talking
happened
with it.
on TV.
What's weird about the whole China thing, though, is, we all sat here and watched that, and we were on the side of the protesters. Even, you look at Trump's tweets.
Yeah.
He was, we're behind you until it happens here. And then even the people that were like, yeah, good for you standing up, finally, it's like, don't do that in my neighborhood. And I think a lot of the people that are worried are, I hate to, I'm not going to say like Karens and, but they're in a safe suburban area where chances are they're never going to see any sort of, police brutality or anything in their life outside of through the media.
I think that is a perfect example of class warfare. I think there are people of color and whites and whatever else we want to throw demographic, gay, whatever demographic that fits in that bracket of safe suburban probably are not going to run into police brutality. With that being said, I'm not going to deny that there's been cases of systemic racism, police brutality, and I again will say that I think that we are a long way far from black codes, Jim Crow, and the atrocities of that was, and that those were atrocities. But I think today's fears of people saying they're fearful of protesters, I don't think the discussion at all is I'm fearful of protesters, even though that's what Fox News would want you to make the narrative about. That's just not true. People are saying, you're burning businesses down, and I'll be clear, I don't care about Target, I don't care about Wendy's, I don't care about whatever, but I do care about the mom and pop shop that's being burned down in the corner. I do care about those people, and I think the people of those neighborhoods care about them, and I think you see a lot of mixed reaction to that, and it's not being covered. Because if you notice that mixed reaction within that community, if you are within that community and you speak out against that, you are an Uncle Tom or whatever derogatory term they want to say, which pretty much means a race traitor. I think that kind of identity politics is dangerous.
Well, I think we've seen this a lot, though. Over the years, anytime that there's riots,
Okay.
usually for the first 2-3 days, a week, whatever, there are riots and people are being extremely violent and crazy, but it's a reaction. It's not well thought. Like, you don't have a week to go, okay,
I get what you're saying there.
We're gonna kill George Floyd next Tuesday, so prepare. It's, oh shit, again, this is happening. So, but I'm getting off topic. What I'm saying is, after everything calms down and it's predominantly peaceful demonstrations, people actually getting organized and coming together, you still see from the media, they'll have 1,000 pictures that they haven't shown, and they'll go, look what's going on here, and it's not. That's shit they've already covered from a different angle. And people just constantly, they're like, there's rioting going on. It's like they're programmed, like they remind me of Internet Explorer or something, they're just catching up, and they keep that going. So
what you got on that, Marcus? That goatee's about perfect.
Is exactly what we're talking about. Because in that statement you said that many people live in suburbs and they don't have to worry about protesting and the violence and all that. And I say that statement in itself is a statement of white privilege. Because as a black man, it doesn't matter where I am. I can get stopped and hassled over there in East Knoxville, or I can get stopped in Farragut. And the reception I receive truly isn't that much different. Simply because they can. There's no reason for me to get stopped in Farragut when I have a car equal to anybody in Farragut, when I have degrees equal to anybody in Farragut, beyond the simple fact of they see me and say, for whatever reason they believe, you don't belong. That in itself is a privilege that white people don't have to live with. So they can live in the suburbs and not worry about it because that's not an issue for them. When we talk about burning, that's that. When we talk about the burning and the destruction of property, realize that both sides took advantage of an event. Whether they've been people of the far left who wanted to take this and make it be a non-point, because they've shown where they had groups of irrep from the right side that were breaking, and we've had groups from the left side that have done the same. Okay, I will tell you that anytime you destroy any property, being the Target down to Joe Smith's hardware store that his family's had to build, be he white or black, for the last 25 years, it just burned down, that he doesn't have the insurance to pay for, that's a sin, because even Target or whatever had people that had to go to work there. They don't have a job after it burned. That man's store that burned very well may not be able to put that store back. That's a problem regardless of who burned it down. I look at that as a negative, but I can't look at that negative and say the protests as a whole don't need to happen. Because at least now with those protests happening, we're here now talking about what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a perfect analogy of, as myself, I'm not going to blanket judge protesters and people
they're
speaking
killing
on
somebody by the police or somebody every 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about, the fact that they don't care less about being on TV, because it's happening to somebody every 3 or 4 days that they're shooting somebody in the back, letting them drown in the river without throwing them a rope, putting a knee on their neck. Those things are happening each and every couple of days. And America now is taking notice of it and believing, is that who we are?
Hey, mess around
Greatest
with your
changes we've had in
something.
our civility among different races has happened after tragic events. Greatest thing that could have happened for the civil rights happened was when they had the altercation at the Ennis Pettus Bridge and when they blew that church up in Birmingham. When people saw that on TV, they felt like that can't be who we are. People saw that man die. That was 40 years ago, 50 years ago. Now we come to the present, and the same thing is existing. And why now is this thing for time for change? Is because now people have seen and said, that can't be who we are. That's why those protests aren't just black kids out there protesting. Black kids and black people have been out there protesting this stuff from the beginning, but it never caught traction. It caught traction now because everybody's starting to see what's happened. For the benefit of America, yes, we're better. And now you have our kids now that go to school with each other that say that could be me or my best friend that has a on their neck. Or that could be somebody that I love or care about or like that could be killed. And because of that, you have all these kids out there protesting. The reason why this is a problem is because nobody wants to see their kids put at harm. Their kids harm.
I
They
think
see
we
an
all
old
agree.
man, 75 years old, get pushed to the ground with his head bleeding on the concrete, and police step over him. There's nothing that 75-year-old man could have done to those police that would warrant that type of reaction.
I think we all agree that peaceful
And
protest
as the
is
public
okay.
can see this, there is a reaction.
Well, do we got any more comments, Hal?
That's not media driven.
No, I was just highlighting that to actually be able to see it. I
What
got
do they say? I can't see.
terrible eyes. You got to care about Target, etc. as well, though, because property rights are the bedrock of a stable
Who
society.
said that?
That would be Mimnock the Devil again.
Mimnock. This is why I don't care about Target. Target came out and said, I do not care about that store being burned. It's okay. So if they don't care about it and they're okay marginalizing all the other small businesses right beside them and saying, your business being burned to the ground is collateral, it's okay. It's like Fallujah. Yeah, I lose respect for Target. That's why I don't care about Target, you know. But that's a non-point. We got anything else?
No. Not yet.
Kind of slow on the first night, Marcus.
The
What do you
reason
think
why
about our
we have to
discussions? What do you
care
think about
about
what we're
Target
doing
is
here?
Target may not care about Target, but those people who don't have a job there anymore, I bet you they care that Target burned.
You're not wrong, and I'm not
Because now they
disagreeing
got
with
to
you.
find a way to feed their family.
I'm frustrated with the
And I understand
the
what you're
commercial
saying.
pandering.
I'm just saying that for the general populace, you know, whether we burn whatever store, and there are a bunch of, I can tell you right now, I'm a fan of Target. I can walk in Target right now, and I can walk down the aisle and they'll follow me for 30 minutes until I leave the store. It's not Target that I'm supporting. It's the people that the jobs there that Target provide. For good or for bad, they're still providing those jobs.
Can you say something real quick, Marcus? We're having a hard time hearing you. Give us a check 1, 2, 3. Or move your mouse around, maybe. Tell Bobby to fix your computer. Not being
We have-
joined. He'll recall. Pretty good discussions right off the bat. I expected a little bit more.
Yeah, he probably needs to rejoin because he was getting real choppy too in the audio.
You back, Marcus?
I'm back.
Did you rejoin and recall?
Yeah, he should just
Hear me?
rejoin.
Yeah, we hear you now.
I can see you on screen. Okay. So, the industry is now in time. I'm just talking about the people's jobs. I understand what you're saying, though. And that was really a poor comment. If I didn't hear Target say that, I'm not surprised. But that's just a poor comment from them, period.
Right. So
And that because they're not invested in the neighborhood, all they're looking at is a dollar amount. They're saying we lose the insurance will cover it. We don't have to come back.
Oh.
having some technical difficulties. Just not the
Beverage difficulties.
Yeah, is there anything else coming on the blotter, or
Well,
what are you looking on like on time, Marcus? And what do you think about the discussion so far?
Didn't need that time.
I'll tell you one thing, another thing that you had brought up in one of our discussions, which I find interesting, me being a history buff, is the guy you sent me a video of, the white guy that hated himself, mentioned his theory was that white supremacy was born into the Roman Catholic Church, and for 5 years ago, under edicts with Poland or one of those European countries, they gave them the right to pillage in the name of not Christendom, in his opinion, but white superiority. I kind of want to go into that because I just found so many fallacies in it myself. I wanted to hear. I didn't want to type it anymore with you because I couldn't take the dude serious in the video. So I want to hear some of your well thought out thoughts on that, because that guy was a joke. You're not. So I'd like to hear what you say about that.
Okay, so, joke or not, some of the things he said were legitimate. Okay? Christianity, as well as most churches, have been used to put out a narrative that was anything about spirituality and God. Okay? Reason why they would not let us read the Bible was the simple fact is that would give people the thought that slavery wasn't legitimate.
Yeah.
That was church driven as well.
Yes, sir.
The Catholic Church, and realize I grew up Catholic, so I don't have any special animosity specifically against Catholicism or Christianity either, beyond the fact that I think religion is used as a tool instead of the spirituality for which it is intended. Whether you consider the enslaving of those Indians or the enslaving of the black people of Africa, when imperialism started and somebody said something about property and the fact that we're based on property rights, he's right. But realize at that point, the church, since the church had a governing position in the world at that point, they don't now, but they did at that point, the church gave them the power to go to these different lands under the rules of a cross and say, either these lands is ours and the people you gather are ours as well.
You have anything on that?
Christopher Columbus, seen as a model or hero, realized Christopher Columbus had all types of sins in the name of the church and Italy, Rome, as well as Spain and whatnot. So he comes to the New World, okay? He enslaves Indians, has sex with 9 to 12-year-old girls, takes them back to Spain as slaves, yet we give him a statue. Now, nobody historically hears about that, but hell, he wasn't even the first one here. Okay? So, did that man who was in that video, courses in which he said it overshadowed much of what he was saying. And the fact is that the church, be it Christianity or not, Protestants, whatnot, has been used as a tool to deprive many of the rights they deserve. That is why when Martin Luther King was in that jail cell, he wrote that letter to the Birmingham churches. He wasn't writing that letter to black churches. They knew what was going on. He wrote that letter to white churches to say, if you say nothing, you're part of the problem. Someone the other day, and I may have came off too strong on him, he said that there was evil out in the world and we need to pray for them. And I said, well, we're glad you're going to pray, but what's taking so long? It's not that this is anything new. I guess that's my problem with churches as a whole, is too often they pick and choose the fights they want to have. And churches, to me, have become political as well as anything else. And that's the wrong place for a church to be.
Yeah, I agree.
My opinion.
Religion and politics is a weird subject because I don't think we want to live in a theocracy. I think that's kind of what we were escaping, for the most part, anyway.
Well, I think high taxes was
Well,
the
yeah.
biggest thing. The colonials we're escaping from the British.
But what I'm saying is, when it comes to religion, especially in this country, you know, not everybody's a Christian. I myself, not really affiliated with any sort of demographic, I guess. It's the easy way to say it.
This is free speech. If you can come
But,
out, I mean, no one's going to.
No.
It's even going to make it that more dynamic.
Right.
To be honest.
Anyone that knows me knows that. But no, as far as religion and politics, though, it gets dangerous when someone else's morals dictate your life. You get what I'm saying? And I think it's easy for politicians. They can get on TV and they can say God, hold a Bible after they've just gassed a bunch of people, and everyone just eats it up. So, I don't know. I think just removing it entirely from that to where it's neutral on all religions. You know, you can be included, but just because you believe some certain way doesn't mean that you can make everyone else go by that. You know, because you have all these topics that, like abortion, things like that, that obviously are going to stir up more of the religious crowd than other topics. But I've noticed, like, you've got the pro-life side, and they're sternly against abortions, even though no one's forcing them to go and get abortions. But then you have, like, the pro-choice that are like, well, just don't get one. And the argument is always, well, that's not, you know, it's morally wrong to kill a child. But then that same crowd are the ones that are like, well, if you don't like it, move. So that's my take on the whole religious moral compass being embedded into politics. It's never ever gonna work for everyone.
I would stay away from abortion just because that topic itself, it would you can spend all night just on that one.
Right. I'm just using that as an example.
I believe that religion and politics.
It's a good. You should see how your face is stuck right now, Marcus. He might have to recall or rejoin. I thought we were. That's so good. I'm gonna take a picture of that. See?
Yeah, and here's another comment. Says, in the 90s was a moral panic with the right trying to force people to subscribe to their morals. Today there's a moral panic with the left doing the same thing, essentially. I agree. It's like a polar shift.
Well,
but it's no different.
I don't know what's happened. I think it locked up. What was the in the 90s?